Hola a todo el mundo, bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Sirey. Soy una abogada afro-latina licenciada practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a hablar del caso de Kouri Richins. Si quieren más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latino criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, you guys, this video came requested from one of my longtime subbies. I'm gonna say her name, but I don't want to mispronounce her username, so I'm probably gonna just insert the message or the comment where she requested this video. But I believe it's Miss Mary Love 101 or just Miss Mary Love. Anyways, Mary asked me if I had time to watch the Kouri Richins trial, and I told her I was passively watching it, but I wasn't actively invested. Mary said that she would like to hear my opinions on it, and she thought that many of you would as well. So without further ado, I do all of this for love. Let's get started into our multi-part saga on Kouri Richins. Okay, really quick before we get started into the video, I'm still trying to figure out my office space setup just a smidge. I got myself a new desk because I didn't like the whole setup I had last time. The lighting might be just a little bit off here, but you know, that's of no moment to you guys, right? Anyways, let's get started. I think what we're gonna do is kind of make this first video like the background video because I'm catching up just as well as you guys are. And then I was able to watch a lot of the trial and I have been appalled at some of the things that has happened in the trial so far, but I'm not gonna just cram it all into one video because things take time and perfection takes time. You know what I'm saying? So let's just make it into separate videos. So we're going to do the background here. We'll get into a little bit of the trial here, but then in the subsequent videos, we'll talk about specific testimony. Kouri Darden Richins was born on April 20th of 1990. Eric Richins, on the other hand, was born on May 13th of 1982. So Kouri and Eric met while they were working together at a local Home Depot. Eventually they got married, and that marriage produced 3 sons. Those sons were named Carter, Ashton, and Weston. So as many of you guys are already aware, Kouri Richins is currently in trial for the murder of her husband, and everything is alleged now because there has been no conviction. But what I found interesting when I was looking into this story is what happened preceding the fatal murder of Eric Richins. So on Valentine's Day of 2022, Eric told a friend that he believed that his wife Kouri was trying to poison him.
How did you come to learn about whatever happened on Valentine's Day?
Eric told us.
What did Eric Richins say?
He said that he thought that Kouri had tried to poison him, but it was more of a funny story. It was like an allergic reaction is what we had thought it was.
So Eric jokingly, I want to accurately
we were laughing at the story.
So did Eric,
along with Eric.
Right. Did Eric jokingly say that Kouri Richins had tried to
Yes, and we all teased Kouri for trying to kill him or poison him or whatever he thought it was.
Okay. How did Kouri Richins react to Eric Richins jokingly say that she tried to poison him on Valentine's Day?
She laughed about it. We were all laughing.
Did she say anything about what happened on Valentine's?
She said, no, that's not what happened, that he had, that it was an allergic reaction or something, or it wasn't that dramatic. It didn't happen like that. Something along those lines.
Did she say how it happened or what happened?
No, not that I can recall.
Just that it didn't happen as Eric jokingly said it happened.
No, but with Eric right there.
Sure. Eric's there the whole time.
Yes.
Understood.
More specifically, Eric told the friend that Kouri had gotten him a sandwich from a local sandwich shop, and he ate the sandwich, and then he all of a sudden broke out into hives. What's very interesting is that prosecutors noted that Eric had no known food allergies, but they also noted that exposure to fentanyl could cause the hives that Eric said he was experiencing. What's also mind-blowing to me is the fact that prosecutors later learned that Kouri actually bought fentanyl from an acquaintance 3 days prior to this incident, and on February 11th of 2022. Later, it was discovered that this acquaintance that Kouri bought the fentanyl from was actually her housekeeper and a woman by the name of Carmen Lauber. Side note, I've seen most of Carmen's testimony, and we're not going to talk about a lot of it in this video, if any of it at all, because I want to separate that. But my thoughts on that are just, I can't wait to share them with you guys. What is important to note about Carmen, in the meantime, before we get into her testimony, is the fact that she was, let's say, a recovering addict. She was a recovering addict and she had multiple felony convictions, including for possession and distribution of illicit substances. It's also said that during the time that she sold this fentanyl to Kouri, she was on probation from one of the convictions. It's also my understanding that she was on drug court probation, which I'll explain to you guys just a little bit further in the next video when we talk about her testimony specifically. But in essence, let's say that drug court probation is rehabilitative probation, right? In essence, all she has to do is report, remain clean, do continued progress, and maintain her continued progress. And that way the conviction will not enter on her record. Okay, so Carmen is alleged to have sold the drugs to Kouri, but where did Carmen get them from? Carmen mentioned that she purchased the drugs from other acquaintances that she knew. And if memory serves, Carmen said that she made those purchases no less than 4 times. The first time was from a woman named Susan, and the last time was from a man named Robert Crozier? Okay, I totally butchered that. The man's name is Robert Crozier. And when Robert Crozier was confronted about the allegations that he sold all of this fentanyl to Carmen, who then sold it to Kouri, Robert said, listen, the first time that law enforcement came to talk to me, I was just detoxing. I have no idea why I said that to them. I don't even remember saying that to them, but that's not my position today. I remember selling Carmen some other drugs. I believe he said oxycodone, but at this point he is denying selling Carmen any fentanyl at all. Okay, let's get back to Eric. So after this failed alleged murder attempt, and on February 26th of 2022, here's exactly what happened. Carmen is said to have purchased additional fentanyl for Kouri after Kouri had informed her that the first batch of fentanyl just wasn't strong enough. Then 6 days later, and on March 4th of 2022, Kouri called the police, stating that her husband, Eric, was unresponsive. It should be noted that Kouri called the police at approximately 3:21 a.m., and Eric was reported deceased at 4:58 a.m. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what happened the night leading in to the morning of Eric's death, because when the prosecutor mentioned it during his opening statement, I was absolutely flabbergasted. At 7:22 p.m. on March 3rd of 2022, prosecutors mentioned that Kouri's boyfriend, Robert Grossman, sent her an image of 2 people romantically kissing with the message, "I love you," under it. A little over an hour later, and at 8:36 p.m., Kouri responded to Robert's message by saying, "I love you too." Some point after that romantic and loving exchange with her affair partner, Kouri's boys go to bed, and then she places a glass right on the side of the bed for her husband, Eric. Kouri returns to the room at 3 a.m. and notices that her husband is not breathing. But does she call 911 at that point? Not at all. Prosecutors noted some activity by which Kouri unlocked her phone, relocked her phone, unlocked her phone, relocked her phone. So having a phone to call 911 clearly wasn't the issue here. And said activity is said to have occurred, I believe, approximately 4 times before the 3:21 a.m. phone call that she ultimately made to the police. Now let's go back, because I want to pray and hope that none of us find ourselves in the unfortunate position of having a spouse of ours murdered and trying to deal with that level of trauma and grief. And I know that everyone reacts and grieves differently and responds differently to trauma. So this is not to say that, Kouri's reaction should have been a certain way or another. I'm just telling you guys what happened. After her husband was murdered. 2 days after it precisely, instead of being the grieving widow that most people would have assumed they would see, Kouri is alleged to have punched one of his sisters in the face. So thanks to Miss Mary Love, I'm literally just getting into the facts of this case, and I don't want to misadvise you guys. I believe it is true that she is said to have punched Eric's sister, but just to make it clear, let's say that she attacked Eric's sister. There was some sort of physical altercation between the two, by which Kouri is said to have attacked the sister. I know from watching the testimony that Eric has at least 2 sisters. The sister that Kouri is alleged to have attacked was his sister Amy. Now let's fast forward. On April 13th of 2022, Kouri is informed that Eric's cause of death was a fentanyl overdose. Because this is so important to the understanding of the case, I want to talk about some things that happened prior to Eric's death, shall we? On October 13th of 2020, Eric is said to have told a real estate attorney that he was trying to protect himself from ongoing financial abuse and misuse that he was discovering on Kouri's part. The very next month, and on November 3rd of 2020, Eric removed Kouri as the beneficiary on his $500,000 life insurance policy. He also transferred his home and his company interest into a trust managed by his other sister, Kouri Richins Benson. Let's just stop a minute and talk about that. Although it's not dispositive, and it will never be dispositive, what it is interesting. The fact that years before his death, Eric was having such premonitions that he felt it important and crucial to transfer all of the money, essentially, in a trust held by his sister, but on top of transferring that money, removing Kouri as the beneficiary on his $500,000 life insurance policy. I don't want to draw false equivalencies, so please let me know if you guys believe I'm misspeaking, but this somewhat reminds me of Lori Vallow Daybell's case. Do you remember how Charles took her off the life insurance policy because he just had such strong premonitions that she was trying to do something to him? This is what that feels like. Well, let's go into some of Kouri's other alleged misdeeds. Both in June and August of 2021, it is alleged that Kouri submitted false banking statements or banking records to her financial institution. These statements used balance details and transaction descriptions from Eric's company. And let's go back because I failed to introduce you to Eric properly. Eric was a businessman and he successfully co-owned a stone masonry business. A few months preceding Eric's death, and on January 29th of 2022, it is said that Kouri took out a life insurance policy on Eric and listed herself as the beneficiary. Per the prosecution, Eric had no knowledge of this additional life insurance policy that was taken out, and he had no affiliation to it. So unlike her successful husband, who's a businessman and appeared to be relatively good with his finances, Kouri literally just could not say the same. In the 5 months leading up to Eric's death, prosecutors state that Kouri overdrafted more than 200 transactions, totaling more than $300,000. On the day that Eric died, prosecutors say that Kouri was in the process of closing on a mansion and accruing an additional $3.2 million in debt. What was of interest to me is this next little tidbit. Prosecutors say that Eric had more than $2 million of interest in his stonemasonry business, but the pair, he and Kouri, had an ironclad prenup, which said if the pair were to divorce, Kouri would get none of that $2 million in interest. But if by some off chance Eric were to die, Kouri would get it all. Interesting, right? Also, a few months before Eric passed, the prosecution noted that Kouri was going to take herself and Robert Grossman on this beautiful little destination getaway to St. Martin, all-inclusive resort. Everything was cool, what have you. And she was spending, or had spent, around $4,000 to $5,000 for that beautiful little birthday celebratory getaway. Now, let's talk about Kouri's search history. Prosecutors say that Kouri searched what happens to deleted messages, how do police and forensic analysts recover deleted data from phones, and signs of being under federal investigation. By June 6th of 2022, prosecutors noted some additional searches that raised some eyebrows. Those searches were: what is a legal dose of fentanyl? And how long does it take life insurance companies to pay out? Now let's fast forward to one of the reasons that I believe this case has made national news and garnered so much media attention. The book. In March of 2023, and before Kouri was charged, but obviously after Eric's murder, she went on a promo tour because she had written a book for her sons to be able to grieve the passing of their father. The book was called Are You With Me? And you know what? Just listen to Kouri tell it.
So you actually wrote this book with your children.
I did. Mm-hmm.
And it's only been a year. How did you process and say you go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
You know, I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through. And I actually, I went on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, dealing with anything. But I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night. And I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace. And so, I was like, let's just write one.
On May 8th of 2023, Kouri was originally charged with aggravated murder and 3 counts of possession of a controlled substance as it relates to Eric's death. Later on June 27th of 2025, Kouri was charged separately with 5 counts of mortgage fraud, 5 counts of forgery, 7 counts of issuing a bad check, 7 counts of money laundering, 1 count of communications fraud, and 1 count of a pattern of unlawful activity. On October 6th of 2025, the prosecution in Kouri's murder case amended the charges to reflect the following: 1 count of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted aggravated murder, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Okay, now that we're all somewhat caught up in some of the background details, not every single detail that there was to have, let's talk about the trial in this case. You guys know, if the information is available, I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about key players. I wanted to talk to you guys about the defense attorneys in Kouri's case, but I also wanted to talk to you about the prosecution. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the defense attorneys. So it looks like Kouri has changed her representation throughout the course of this case. Initially, it looks like she was represented by a woman by the name of Sky Lazaro, but I don't know what happened there. Ultimately, Sky withdrew from the case to make way for Kouri's new representation, a woman by the name of Kathryn Nester and another woman by the name of Wendy Lewis. And I also don't want to miss the moment to mention that it appears that Kouri has a third defense attorney by the name of Alex Ramos. So in looking into Kathryn and Wendy, let me tell you that I found some interesting things that I just wanted to share with you guys. According to Kathryn's official website, she totes and boasts about having 30 years or more than 30 years of trial litigation experience. And I think the very next sentence under that said she had something like 60 trials. You guys might not know this because you're not lawyers, or you may not have affiliations to lawyers, or I don't know, maybe your family member doesn't practice criminal law or whatever. But let me tell you this, when I saw 60 trials over the course of 30 years, I was like, oh, that's a flex. I don't know. I don't think that's a lot of trials, but I'm not saying it's a little bit of trials. I'm just saying for 30 years, that's not a lot of trials. But let me give you guys a comparison. When I saw that stat, I thought it was low immediately, but I asked one of my besties who's been licensed to practice quite a bit longer than me at 10 years. And I said, hey, in your 10 years of practice, how many trials have you done? And he said 50. So listen to that. 10 years, 50 trials. Okay. Then I asked my mother. I don't know if I told you guys this, but my mother, she's not an actual mother to me. She's a mentor to me, and she raised me as far as criminal litigation is concerned. So I call her my mother out of respect. I said, Ma, How long have you been licensed to practice and how many trials have you done? So mommy's Malaysian, so she had to do the certification and get recertified in America or what have you. But in Malaysia, she's been licensed to practice since 1998. And then here in America, she got licensed to practice in 2004. Mommy said that as throughout the entirety of her career, I'm counting 1998 up until now, that's 28 years. She's done 83 trials. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm not trying to discredit this woman on her 60 trials or whatever, but I probably would have left that off because 30 years and 60 trials doesn't really equate to me. But those are just my opinions. I'm not saying she's any less good than an attorney who's done a trial a year or whatever. What I think we have to acknowledge is that prosecutors will always have more trials under their belt than defense attorneys ever will, ever. And that's because a prosecutor takes every case and defense attorneys take select cases, right? Meaning there will always be a prosecutor on the case. There's no guarantee that the attorney assigned to defend the defendant will be a public defender, if there'll be alternate defense counsel appointed by the court, or if there'll be a private attorney. So by those stats, it's just that the defense attorneys will be at a disadvantage when it comes to how many numbers of trials that they will get. That is just my opinion, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind. The next thing that came to my attention was the fact that I learned that Miss Nester is actually going to be the defense attorney in Tyler Robinson's case. And if you guys will remember, Tyler Robinson is the young man who is alleged to have shot and killed Charlie Kirk.
We have a breaking news update in the murder of Charlie Kirk. The man charged with shooting the political activist has been assigned a defense lawyer.
Attorney Kathryn Nester will represent Tyler Robinson. The Utah County Commission unanimously approved the move today. The 22-year-old faces several counts, including felony aggravated murder. State prosecutors have made it clear they plan to seek the death penalty in this case.
If you are new here, please take no offense to my use of the terminology alleged, okay? I say that because no conviction has formally entered, and as we all know, everyone is entitled to due process. So because of that, I'm not going to pre-convict someone despite anybody's feelings. The prosecution in this case is led by Chief Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth. I looked into him as well because I wanted to give you guys just a reference point of who he was and what he did. What I saw was that he graduated from the University of Baltimore. He's been licensed in Maryland since the year 2000, so 26 years. And aside from that, he got licensed in Utah in the year 2021. I don't know if all of his practice was in criminal prosecution, but that's just the background that I was able to find on him. Now that we're somewhat caught up with everything, the key players, a little bit of background on Kouri, what she's alleged to have done, the allegations here, let's talk about opening statements. Okay, let me just give you guys my little rant. I know I've mentioned this to you guys before, but I'm just going to mention it here because I want to, really. I don't think it was applicable here. I think everyone did a good job, but let me just tell you something. I, just as a general rule, will almost never object to anything during opening statements or closing arguments. And that is because, as the court admonishes everyone, it lets everyone know that opening statements are not evidence, they are argument. And closing statements are not evidence, they are statements of what the parties believe the evidence has shown. So basically, it's just a popular opinion, really, right? So you stick within certain boundaries and you just tell a story and a narrative and provide an opinion. And I don't know, I just think it's tacky to be objecting to someone's opinion, right? Unless they're saying something super egregious, as in like, during closing arguments, the evidence has shown X and no such evidence has been shown. That might be a proper reason to object. But regardless, I think it's just smoother to let people just say their openings and say their closings. I think the parties here did a phenomenal job. I don't note any objection that was made on behalf of either side during opening statements, but I just mentioned that to you because it's just something I always think about when I'm talking about opening statements. It's just a huge pet peeve of mine. But anyways, let's talk about Mr. Bloodworth's opening statement. His opening statement was a little bit shy of 30 full minutes, which I think is just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so pretty. It tickles my heart. It gives me all the warm fuzzies inside because I tell you guys all the time, I think that if you do too much, you can lose the jury, right? So if you're sitting there talking to a jury for 4 days in opening, you're just beating a dead horse. It's too much. And at some point, you're inevitably repeating yourself. I thought that Mr. Bloodworth's statement was beautiful. It was beautiful. It captured the essence of the case. It didn't belabor any unnecessary points. He just had it with a fine-tooth comb. He delivered, and I loved it. But let me have you guys hear it from him himself.
It is the evening of March the 3rd, 2022. The defendant, Kouri Richins, her husband, Eric Richins, and their 3 children, 9-year-old Carter, 7-year-old Ashton, and 5-year-old Weston, are at their home in Camas. Eric Richins lived for his 3 boys. At 7:22 p.m., Kouri Richins' boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, texts Kouri Richins an image of 2 people romantically kissing. The image is captioned, "Love you." At 8:36, Kouri Richins replies, "Love you." The boys go to bed. Kouri Richins makes Eric a drink and takes it to him in their bedroom. He drinks on the bed. She departs the bedroom. Kouri Richins returns to the bedroom at about 3:00 a.m. She feels that Eric is cold. She nudges him. He does not respond. She sees that he is stiff and pale. His mouth is wide open. At 3:06 a.m., Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone. She travels 243 feet beginning at 3:08 a.m. She unlocks her cell phone again at 3:10, 3:15, and twice at 3:19. At 3:21, Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone and calls 911. Paramedics respond, but they are unable to revive Eric. He has no pulse. He is cold. They pronounce him dead at 3:58 a.m. on March the 4th, but they think he has been dead a while. My name again is Brad Bloodworth. I am one of Summit County's criminal prosecutors who, along with Lindsay Shervinack and Fred Burmester, will present to you the state of Utah's aggravated murder case against Kouri Darden Richins for causing the poisoning death of her husband and the father of her 3 children, Eric Richins. The state will also prove to you that 2 weeks before murdering Eric Richins, Kouri Richins attempted to murder him. 2 weeks before attempting to murder Eric Richins, Kouri Richins took out an insurance policy by fraud and forgery on Eric's life. And 2 weeks after Eric died, she submitted a fraudulent claim on yet another insurance policy. In this opening statement, I will summarize for you some of the evidence that the state will present over the next few days, perhaps weeks, so that you have a framework to assemble and analyze all of the evidence. The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life. More than anything, she wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success.
So the defense's opening statement was given by Kathryn Nester. And let me tell you guys this. I had read a lot of comments just in, the comment section, but also in the live stream when it's, the live chats, everything. Just a lot of comments talking about everyone's disdain for Miss Nester and everyone's opinions on Miss Nester being just a horrible, rude woman. I will tell you this. This is my first impression of her, is this opening statement, and that is not the impression I took. Not from this, at least. We'll get into some other things that both sides have done later in subsequent videos, but not here at least. I thought Miss Nester did okay. The reason I say I thought she did okay is because when I was looking for the theory of defense in her opening argument, I don't think I properly found one. It's my understanding that basically what they're saying is Eric overdosed on an edible that was laced, right? But where will any evidence show that? And as we all know, defense has no burden at all. I'm just trying to figure out what evidence the prosecution has that would substantiate defense's theory of the case. And I haven't been able to find that. But again, let you hear it from Miss Nester herself.
Now you're going to hear that Eric Richins' family simply could not accept that. They needed someone or something to blame for losing someone they loved that wasn't Eric himself. And that's totally understandable. No family ever wants to believe that behind closed doors, someone they love is using drugs. No one wants to believe that. But the family's need to make sense of Eric's death went way beyond what you would expect a normal grieving family to go through. You will hear that as the detective arrived at the house, Eric's sisters spoke with the detective in the driveway. This is before anyone in the house knows how Eric died. If he had a heart attack, if he had an aneurysm, a lot of people were talking about aneurysms at the scene, and you're going to hear that. Nobody knew yet how he died. The sisters were telling the police Kouri probably did this. Kouri probably did this. Day one. His sister Katie tells the police, and you're going to hear her testify about this, that Kouri had recently found out that Eric had put all their assets in a trust and that Katie was in charge of the trust. She's going to say, I'm in charge, and that Kouri didn't like that. She told that to the police at the scene. So Kouri already knew before Eric ever died that his assets were protected in a trust and didn't automatically come to her if he died, that there were legal things you had to go through. You're going to hear that it didn't stop there. The Richins family hired a private investigator, and you're going to see how much they paid that private investigator. And it's almost $100,000. And they paid that investigator to spend every waking minute digging up as much dirt as he possibly could on Kouri Richins to try to implicate her in Eric's death. Even though the state already had all the evidence from the scene that night that would show what happened in those 6 hours, right? The investigator goes looking for skeletons in the closet. And boy, did he find some. You're going to hear that after an exhaustive private investigation into every single thing about Kouri Richins' life, he uncovered plenty of things that I'm quite sure she's not proud of. She's not a perfect person. She's a flawed person. I would submit we all are. But the prosecutor just turned some of her most intimate, personal correspondence into entertainment with bubbles and slides. And they're going to continue to assassinate her character throughout this trial, so get ready. Those 6 hours, ladies and gentlemen, between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., somewhere in that time, Eric Richins died. Somewhere in that time, he ingested a fatal dose of fentanyl. What you will never hear after 4 years of investigation, where as recently as 2 weeks ago, they were back searching that house. After 4 years of investigation and 5 weeks of this trial, you know what you're never going to hear? Is how that fentanyl got inside of him. His death certificate reads, but the manner of his death is still unknown to this day. You're going to hear testimony that a medical examiner has the ability to declare the manner of someone's death. It can be homicide, it can be suicide, it can be accidental overdose, it can be murder, it can be anything. To this day, the medical examiner, the professional that's the head of declaring how people die in the state of Utah, has never been able to determine the manner of Eric Richins' death. Now, you're going to hear first responders and law enforcement tell you that no fentanyl was found in the bedroom the night of his death. But you're also going to hear them that they didn't search for it. You know, we've all seen the TV shows, the crime shows. What do you do if there's a murder, right? If you think there's a murder, tape it off. No one gets in or out. It becomes a crime scene. You search everything. You search the closet. You search the bathroom. You search the vehicles. You search the house. You search the office. They didn't do that.
Okay. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give a shout out to Miss Mary Love, who's the one who asked me for my opinions on it and asked me to cover it. We will continue our coverage into Kouri Richins' case in subsequent videos, where I will talk about specific testimony, my pros, cons, what have you, and we'll just break down some things about the trial a little bit further. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.